Good morning, fellow American patriots, and welcome to another episode of the Bald Brad Show. It is January 3rd, 2024, and Joe Biden is still the worst president in American history. Today, we're peeling back the layers of what's happening in our nation, and let me tell you, it's quite the spectacle, so buckle up. First off, we've got this gem from the White House, and I hope you're sitting down for this, because White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said, give Bidenomics more time. Yes, folks, give Bidenomics more time. You got to ask yourself, what the hell? Americans have been patient, haven't they? We've watched as this administration juggles with an economy that's more upside down than a freaking circus act. And yet, here we are, being told to wait just a little bit longer, because apparently a few years isn't enough to see the fruits of Biden's economic genius. Here's the clip of Karine Jean-Pierre saying, give Bidenomics more time.
How do you explain the groups that have supported Joe Biden for so long, Democrats for so long, now kind of looking around, actually, and among young voters, too, not just that they're looking at Donald Trump, but they're looking at other choices. How do you explain them sort of straying from this president, from the Democratic Party?
So I'm gonna be super mindful of 2024 as we're into an election year. Look, we understand what the American people went through these past 3 years, right? We came out of a pandemic, right? A pandemic that we haven't seen in 100 years. And when the president walked in, the economy was upside down. And so we get it. We get that it's going to take a little bit of time for folks to feel what the Bidenomics has been able to do. That's not something that I'm saying. That's something that economists have said, right? It takes a little bit of time. But it doesn't mean that the president's not going to continue to work.
And let's not forget the pandemic, the go-to excuse for this administration. It's like a magic wand for explaining away all their shortcomings. But let's be real, folks. Is the pandemic really to blame for voters straying from the president? Or is it something else? Maybe it's the realization that promises are as hollow as Biden's head. And speaking of Biden's hollow head, did anyone see that clip of President Biden during the New Year's with Ryan Seacrest? We have a clip here. Just watch as the president just rambles about, I don't know, something.
As you look back and reflect on 2023, what sort of memories, highlights stand out for you?
Well, one of the big highlights stands out for me is my dad used to have an expression. He'd say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than the paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. So many people through the Midwest and in the center of the country, their factories are shipped overseas the last couple of times out, and they were losing hope and faith. So we brought a lot of jobs back to the United States. People are in a position to be able to make a living now, and they've created a lot of jobs, over 14 million. And I guess I just feel good that the American people got up. They've been through a rough time with pandemic, but now we're coming back. They're back.
If hearing that knucklehead rambling wasn't enough, Jean-Pierre boasted about the decline in unemployment rates in the Black and Latino communities thanks to Bidenomics. Well, congratulations on the numbers game, but what about the real picture? The living cost, the everyday struggles of Americans, are they just numbers too? Equity, she says, is at the heart of every policy. But when you're sinking in an economic quagmire, does that heart beat for the common American, or does it skip a beat for political gain? And let's talk about this Bidenomics slogan. Even their own are calling it a freaking disaster. If your own team thinks it's a terrible idea, maybe, just maybe, it's time to rethink your own strategy. CNN's Errol Lewis, hit the nail on the head. The economy might be getting a little bit better, but if the people don't feel it, what's the point? It's like throwing a party where the guests are starving, but you keep telling them how great the food is. Sooner or later, they're going to leave, and that's exactly what they're doing to Joe Biden. Now, let's not skirt around the giant elephant in the room here, the transparency or the lack thereof in this administration. Promises of being the most transparent administration in U.S. history. Well, folks, it seems like those promises are as transparent as a brick wall. And now, let's turn our attention to the topic that's as hot as a Texas summer, the border crisis. Once again, Karine Jean-Pierre, in a remarkable display of verbal gymnastics, took to MSNBC to paint a picture that's more surreal than a Dali painting. She's out there claiming that President Biden is the knight in shining armor for the U.S. border, battling valiantly against those dastardly Republicans who, according to her, are the only obstacle in this saga. Check this clip out.
We need to do that. We need to continue to work together on border security, right? The president, first day in his administration, in a couple of weeks, we're going to hit 3 years since the president's been in administration. The first thing that he put forward was a comprehensive immigration law. And that's what he put forward to Congress. And that's because he believed that our system was broken and that it had been broken for decades and wanted to take that seriously. But we need Republicans in Congress to work with us on that. We appreciate the negotiations that's currently happening in the Senate. It's headed in the right direction. We want to come up with a bipartisan agreement, but we saw what the House passed ending of last year. They wanted to take away law enforcement folks who are at the border trying to protect our border. And so that's not what we want to see. We want to figure out how we work together. I just talked about the unity agenda. There's a lot of ways that we can work with Congress. Instead of them going after the president's family, they should really, truly, truly focus on the American family.
Well, here's the kicker, folks. While they're selling this narrative, the Biden administration is gearing up to sue Texas over a new state law, which we have covered time and time again. But what's this law about? Well, it's about taking actual steps to secure the border to address the illegal immigration crisis that's been more like a never-ending season of a bad reality show. But wait, isn't that what the president claims he's trying to fix? So let me get this straight. On one hand, they say they're doing everything they can to protect the border, but on the other hand, they're throwing a legal tantrum over Texas taking matters into their own hands? If this isn't a masterclass in contradiction, honestly, I don't know what is. It's like watching someone trying to put out a fire with one hand while holding a gasoline can in the other. The administration's approach to the border crisis is about as effective as a screen door on a freaking submarine. And the American people, well, they're not buying tickets to this show anymore. They're tired of the smoke and mirrors, tired of the double talk. They want action, real action, not just a political theater where the plot twists more than a winding mountain road. In those first two stories, you saw Karine Jean-Pierre completely manipulate and spin what's actually taking place. Well, we also have Karine Jean-Pierre in a display of what can only be described as a political theater, has labeled the transportation of illegal immigrants to self-proclaimed sanctuary cities as, quote, shameful. Check this clip out.
The busing of migrants, the putting them on flights, it is shameful that that is occurring. And instead of, if the governor really truly wants to deal with this issue, he should talk to the senators in his states.
Yes, you heard that correctly. The very cities and states that have declared themselves safe havens for illegal immigrants are now, according to Jean-Pierre, not the appropriate destination for these individuals. It's like a chef complaining about too many cooks in the kitchen despite having invited them all in. This situation is a textbook example of a political posturing meeting the harsh reality of policy consequences. Sanctuary cities, by their very definition, are meant to be refugees, or refuge, rather, for these illegal immigrants. Yet when faced with the practical implications of their own policies, the response is not just avoidance, but outright indignation. Critics have been quick to point out the glaring contradiction here. It's as if the leaders of these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary jurisdictions, wanted the moral high ground without the responsibility that comes with it. They were more than happy to welcome federal funds and bask in the glow of virtue signaling, but when it comes to dealing with the actual, tangible results of their declarations, the story changes. Then, adding to this comedic fare, Jean-Pierre boldly claimed that President Biden has done more in 2 years than any other president in 2 terms.
So look, I want to take a step back for just a moment as we look at 24 and we're in 24, but just a step back, this president has done more in 3 years than any other president has done in 2 terms, and that is important.
This statement, coming amidst of a border crisis that seems to only be worsening, seems more like a line from a fantasy novel than a reflection of reality. What we are witnessing is a classic case of political doublespeak, where words are used not to illuminate, but to obfuscate, not to clarify, but to confuse. It's a dance of words where the steps are so convoluted that even the dancers seem to forget their moves. And now, let's shift our gaze here to the hollow halls of Harvard University, where the academic drama is more gripping than a Shakespearean tragedy. Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard, has finally stepped down amidst a whirlwind of controversy. This isn't just a resignation, it's a saga that encapsulates the very essence of today's academic and cultural climate. Let's break this down for just one moment. Gay's resignation follows a series of plagiarism allegations touching nearly 50 instances across 8 of her 17 published works. Now, in the world of academia, plagiarism is no small matter. It is taken very seriously. Heck, it's a cardinal sin. But the story takes a more convoluted turn. Gay, in her resignation letter, suggests the racial animus played a role in the criticism against her. Here we go again, folks. We once again encountered a familiar play from the Democrats and the liberal playbook. It's called the race card. It's a tactic as predictable as it is disheartening. Whenever the waters of criticism and accountability start to rise, out comes the well-worn card. It's almost as if by magic, genuine concerns and legitimate questions are expected to vanish in the face of accusations of racial animus. This isn't just deflection, it's an art form. The race card is brandished not in pursuit of the truth, but as a shield against critique, a way to silence dissent. It's a move that cheapens the very real issues of race and discrimination, turning them into nothing more than political tools. The strategy, seems time and time again, doesn't just undermine the arguments at hand, it erodes the foundation of honest discourse. And in this erosion, we all lose a bit of the bedrock upon which our society is built, the ability to engage, debate, and disagree in pursuit of a greater understanding and a better nation. Think about this for a moment. Harvard, a bastion of intellectual rigor and scholarly excellence, is now at the center of a storm where allegations of academic misconduct are intertwined with claims of racial bias. It's a potent mix that raises more questions than it answers. Is the criticism of Gay's work solely based on academic merit, or are there other darker forces at play? It's a question that sends ripples through the foundation of one of America's most prestigious institutions. Then there's the issue of anti-Semitism on campus. During congressional testimony, Gay was questioned about Harvard's stance on hate speech, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Her response, quote, "It could be a violation depending on the context." That's a statement that should give us all pause. In an era where words matter more than ever, where does Harvard really stand on the fundamental values of free speech and academic integrity? The fallout from this controversy is tangible. High-profile donors are hitting pause on their generosity. Applications are down, and Congress, in a move that underscores the gravity of the situation, has launched an investigation into both the anti-Semitism and plagiarism allegations at Harvard. Gay's tenure, lasting just over 6 months, is now a part of Harvard's storied history. But it's a chapter that leaves us pondering the delicate balance between academic freedom, moral responsibility, and the pursuit of happiness. And, one would say, the pursuit of truth. As this story continues to unfold, it serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and challenges facing our institutions of higher learning. It's a reminder that even the mightiest can falter, and that the pursuit of knowledge is often fraught and unexpected twists and turns. The next story that we're going to show right now is not a twist or a turn, but something we are far too familiar with. It's the saga of big tech and its dance with censorship. It's a tune we've heard before, isn't it? As we barrel into another election year, it seems the ghosts of 2016 and 2020 are back to haunt the digital corridors of power. The stage is set, the actors are in place, and the script, well, it's as predictable as ever. Remember the days when saying the wrong thing about COVID-19 could get you a one-way ticket to the digital gulag, or when a sitting president was unceremoniously booted off Twitter. Those were the days when facts were less important than the narrative, where the line between truth and fiction was blurred by the hands of those in control. And who could forget the Hunter Biden laptop saga? A story so inconvenient to the powers that be that it was dismayed as nothing more than a fairy tale, a fabrication despite mounting evidence to the contrary. It was a masterclass in narrative control, a display of power that would make Orwell blush. Fast forward to today, and we see the pattern repeating itself once again. The latest victim, Libs of TikTok, a page known for its unapologetic stance and the poking the proverbial bear. According to the founder of TikTok, the brain behind the content and the account, Facebook decided it was time for a timeout, suspending the page for allegedly violating community standards. But what standards are these exactly? The ones that conveniently align with a certain political agenda? Heck, even after an appeal and a reinstatement, the shadows of doubt linger. The account, a thorn in the side of those who prefer their narratives unchallenged, finds itself in the crosshairs yet again. Twitter, not to be outdone, placed the account on a trends blacklist, a move that reeks of fear. Fear of voice that refuses to echo the chorus. This isn't just about one account or one platform. It's a symptom of a larger disease where dissent is squashed and dialogue is stifled. When big tech companies play jury and the judge and the executioner, what's left for the rest of us? A sanitized version of reality, a world where only the right opinions, again, the right opinions, are allowed to flourish. So, as we watch this censorship campaign unfold, let's remember the stakes, folks. It's not just about this election, it's about the very essence of our democracy. It's about the right to speak, to disagree, to challenge the status quo. But when the right is threatened, we all lose a little bit of what makes us free. And now let's turn to this explosive news that's been simmering in the public conscious for years. A story so lurid and so unsettling that it reads like a script from a Hollywood thriller. The Jeffrey Epstein Saga, a tale of wealth, power, and unspeakable crimes. If you recall, the Epstein list is supposed to drop any day now, but let's refresh our memory on who Epstein was and what he did. Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous financier, once a math teacher, later a high flyer in the world of the uber rich, found himself embroiled in a scandal so dark it sends shivers down the spine. His story is a sordid tapestry of alleged sexual abuse and exploitation of minors, a narrative that stretches back over decades and decades. Arrested on July 6th for sex trafficking and conspiracy charges, Epstein was accused of a pattern of predatory behavior that's as grotesque as it is horrifying. According to the incident, this wasn't just a few isolated ones. It was a systemic, years-long operation. Epstein is said to have lured girls as young as 14 to his luxurious homes in New York and Palm Beach, only to sexually exploit them. And it wasn't just Epstein acting alone. Oh, no. This was a network, a vast and vile web of abuse that Epstein allegedly constructed with cold calculation. He paid these young girls, turned them into recruiters themselves, expanding his circle of victims in a sickening pyramid scheme of exploitation. But Epstein's web of influence stretched far beyond his immediate circle. His social connections read like a who's who of global elite. Presidents, princes, high-profile businessmen. Epstein rubbed shoulders with them all. And as the layers of the scandal are peeled back, the question on everyone's mind is, how deep does this really go? The allegations against Epstein are more than just a scandal. They're a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of power and privilege. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about what wealth and influence can hide, and who gets protected and who gets exploited in our society. Epstein's case raises questions that go far beyond one's depravity. It challenges the very foundations of our legal and social order. Who knew what and when? How could this have gone on for so long unchecked as well as unchallenged? These are questions that demand answers. But there's one name that the Democrats are salivating over in the swirling maelstrom of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. One name that frequently comes up in the discussions is Donald Trump. But let's cut through the noise and focus on the facts, the hard truths that often get lost in this media speculation and politically misguided mass narrative that's being spit out by Democrats in conjunction with the mainstream media. Bradley Edwards has a confirmation in his book called Relentless Pursuit. Bradley Edwards, a lawyer who represented Epstein's victims, shedded light on Trump's interactions with Epstein. Edwards, in fact, emphasizes that Trump was never around when minors were present with Epstein and did not engage in any improper sexual activities. This statement stands as a significant counterpoint to the rampant speculations linking Trump to Epstein's illicit activities. Trump's cooperation? Well, Edwards also notes that Trump was once, or at least one of the few, who didn't resist talking about Epstein. In fact, he provided helpful information that often corroborated key aspects of the case against Epstein. This willingness to assist and provide useful information is noteworthy, especially in a case shrouded in secrecy and non-cooperation by many, many high-profile individuals. Well, what were Trump's actions against Epstein? It's a documented fact that Donald Trump expelled Epstein from his Mar-a-Lago club. This action speaks louder than words and indicates Trump's disapproval and distancing himself from Epstein, contrary to what some narratives suggest that are being pushed by Democrats and the mainstream media. What were the warnings about Epstein? Well, over the years, Trump has warned people about Jeffrey Epstein. These warnings paint a picture of a man aware of Epstein's questionable character and activities, further distancing Trump from any alleged complicity in Epstein's crimes. Trump's DOJ and anti-trafficking efforts under the Trump administration, we had the Department of Justice who took decisive action against Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, NXIVM, and Backpage, marking significant progress in the fight against child sex trafficking. Trump declared combating this heinous crime a priority from the early days of his presidency, leading to significant crackdowns and arrests. But remember, Democrats don't want you to know anything about this. They want to keep it woven into the fabrics of the deep underground layer of this mainstream media massive complex. Well, regarding the sexual allegations made against Trump, it's crucial to shift and sift through the claims with a critical eye. Allegations of women being paid to lie or having links to Hillary Clinton and her associates necessitate a careful examination of the facts and motivations behind these accusations. When it comes to Trump's connection with Epstein, the facts present a narrative quite different from the one often portrayed. It's a reminder that the pursuit of truth, especially in politically charged matters, separating fact from fiction is not just important, it's essential. As we come to a close of today's journey through the labyrinth of current events on the Bald Brad Show, let's take a moment to reflect on the ground we've covered, the truths we've unearthed, and the narratives we dissected. We started with the spectacle of Bidenomics, a term that's become so popular as a lead balloon. We've examined the contradictory stances of the current administration, especially on issues like border security, where their actions seem to have danced a two-step away from their words. It's a tale of promises, expectations, and the stark reality of results, or lack thereof. Then we ventured into the hallowed halls of Harvard, where the resignation of Claudine Gay, amidst allegations of plagiarism and racial animus, have raised questions that go beyond academic integrity. It's a reflection of a broader cultural and social conundrum, where the race card is played not as a call for justice, but as a shield against accountability. Our exploration took us on a darker turn with the unfolding saga of Jeffrey Epstein, a story that exposes the underbelly of power and privilege. It's a narrative that focuses us to confront uncomfortable truths about a society we live in, where wealth and connections can sometimes cast a long shadow over justice and morality. And let's not forget about the drama of big tech censorship, the case of libs of TikTok and others like it, where voices are silenced under the guise of community standards, poses a question about freedom of speech in the digital age. Throughout these stories, one theme remains constant. The quest for truth is a sea of narratives, half-truths, and outright fabrications. It's a reminder that the stories we tell and the way we tell them shape our understanding of the world. So let's wrap up today's episode. Remember, the search for the truth doesn't end when the show does. It's a continuous journey, one that we all are a part of. So stay curious, stay critical, and stay tuned for more from The Bald Brad Show, where we peel back the layers of the stories that matter to you. Remember, in a world of ever-shifting narratives, the pursuit of truth is more important than ever. See you next time, where we'll continue to dive deep into the stories that shape our world. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeking the truth. God bless, and God bless America.